This is so wonderful to be able to come together as a community, even though it's all online. My name is Linda Rourke, and I want to welcome to our first of this 5-part series. And I'm a graduate of Mohawk College. I graduated the media television program a few years ago. You can see there on by my name, 1990. And now I'm actually working for the Mohawk College Foundation, and it's a real honor. I absolutely love being back at the college. It's like I never left, even though it was so many years ago. So just a reminder to everybody who's joined us, please keep your video and audio off. There is the chat box, and you can put your questions in there. And after we're done our discussion, we're going to go to the chat box and take as many of those questions as we can to our two guests, who I'd love to introduce to you now. Our topic, of course, is building community in the time of social distancing, because this has been a very strange kind of world for many. And then for others, they're like, well, you know, it's not so bad. So it just depends on where you are in your life, I think, and the type of work you're doing. But please welcome our guests. We have Kimberly John Morgan, who's a new graduate, not a new graduate total, because you've done several things during your life, Kimberly, but a new graduate of the volunteer management program at Mohawk College, and you're now working in student life and doing the Campus 2 community program. So welcome. I'm going to get back to you to talk a little more about yourself, but I also wanted to introduce you to Paul Logan, who's the grad of the Child and Youth Worker program at Mohawk College, even well before me, Paul. So this is awesome. So welcome to you as well. But first, Kimberly, let's just go back to you and talk a little bit about you and what you do, so that people have an understanding of the very amazing background that you had, and how you can help people understand that volunteer component.
So my background is in career development, and I've worked in that field for many, many years. And recently I went on a bit of a career pivot to marry that with volunteer management. And I just finished that program at Mohawk College in December. So amazing, so happy that I'm done. And so basically why I wanted to do volunteer management was because volunteering can be a really great gateway into career development, especially for new grads or people who are thinking about getting into a new field. Volunteering is a great way for you to develop new skills, figure out if you like a field before you make that full-on pivot. So I just saw it as like an addendum to what has already been a great career. And so currently I work in Campus to Community at Mohawk, which is where we connect students with community-based volunteer opportunities. We have 18 community partners that we work with. Right now, obviously, our students are not out in the community, but we do have some virtual opportunities, which I'll get into a little bit later.
Thanks, Kimberly. Appreciate that. And Paul, we'll go to you now. And as I mentioned, you were a grad of the Child and Youth Worker program, and you started volunteering when you were like 16. I just love those stories, you know, like when you're a young person, you get out there and start volunteering. And I think that sort of stays with you through your whole life. And you're now working on an incredible initiative. So I'm going to now just hand it over to you to sort of talk a little bit about your background and then what you're doing right now, because it's amazing.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I was playing with my computer there a second ago. I didn't know if I turned off the sound. So basically, yeah, well, it's kind of funny. I mean, as you said earlier, I mean, I started volunteering when I was young, so I kind of had that experience, and throughout the years, I've done different things. But most recently, I moved out to BC from Ontario 4 years ago, and got busy working. I was doing home care with a man with autism. I was a professor in Toronto before I came out here, but decided that when I got out here, I was tired of teaching and wanted to get back into sort of direct work with people. And so anyway, so I was doing that. And coincidentally, I was just planning to retire at the end of March. And with COVID hitting, it was kind of one of those things where the opportunities were there. And I got involved with making some sandwiches. And so that's kind of how that got started because of the COVID situation. Because I'm new in Victoria, I haven't done a lot of work in the volunteer basis, so this was all kind of new to me.
So let's start there, because I think that this sandwich initiative that you've gotten involved with, Paul, is really something and kind of really speaks to how we can stay connected and build community during this time of social distancing. And since March 26th, I think you've distributed over 7,400 sandwiches to people who are in need, and I think that's just great. So talk about how that initiative started and how you got involved.
Sure, I think that's really important, and one of I think it's kind of one of those situations where you kind of is the right place at the right time. So there's another Facebook group called COVID-19 Coming Together. This one specifically for Victoria, and I don't know if these are in other parts of the province or parts of the country, but it was a site that was set up to provide a place for people that had offers of help or assistance, or people that were requiring help or assistance in all kinds of help, everything from rent to information to someone needed medication picked up, whatever. So that was a very large group. Lots and lots of people were on there offering and receiving support. It was through that community group that a request was put out for some sandwiches for a minister working with the homeless. Initially, they asked for 200 sandwiches. And so my friend and I, at that point, I had a young adult friend that I needed support. So he was sort of hanging out with me during the first couple weeks of this lockdown. So what happened was we said to each other, well, we can make 200 sandwiches between the two of us. So, we made 100 PB&J and 100 ham sandwiches, and we took them down to this minister downtown who, coincidentally, he got sick with a bad cold, couldn't show up. I ended up dropping these sandwiches off to a shelter that I had to find the last minute because I haven't been involved with the homeless community here in Victoria. So this was all pretty new. Out of that came a request. So let me step back. So what happened was in that when we were making the sandwiches, we decided we would take some pictures and we would figure out what the costs were for 100 ham sandwiches, for 100 PB&J, thinking that, maybe other people could do this as well. So we got so excited that this all was happening that I posted all this on my Facebook page, my personal page. And I had some friends the day before said, oh, well, I will help with expenses if you want. So I put my email address, my personal email address, into this Facebook page saying, if anybody wants to chip in $10, here's my email address. This is for my friends. Well, that was the beginning of the evening on March 23rd, to be exact. And as the evening wore on, my friend and I said, well, this is really great. Why don't we post this on this COVID page and see if other people will make sandwiches? So I just copied all of my personal page, pictures and everything, and posted it on this COVID-19 page. Well, what I hadn't really thought about as I was doing that was I'd left my personal email in there and asked for donations. Well, out of the blue, all of a sudden I'm getting e-transfers sent to me from people I don't even know for $50, $100, $25. And then I'm getting all these people saying, hey, I'll do a day and I'll do a day and I can do some and I can do some. So it was like, all of a sudden I realized like, oh my goodness, this is like taking off and I don't know how to organize all this. So, so then we got a request through that from an agency called the Mustard Seed Church. And because of COVID-19, all their volunteers had to stay home and they didn't have people to make sandwiches for their lunch bags. So they said, hey, maybe we could work together. That was on Wednesday, the day that I first took sandwiches out. Well, by the end of that day, that night, I had CBC Radio calling me saying, hey, we heard about this thing that you're doing with sandwiches. Will you be interviewed tomorrow morning? So my friend and I, who was having dinner together, we looked at it and she says, oh, what's the name of your, what are you calling yourselves? Well, we looked at each other and sort of at the last minute said, well, how about the Sandwich Initiative? And so that night we made a Facebook group page in order to sort of coordinate things. And so I had that interview the next morning. Well, long and short of the story is now we decided, well, rather than everybody just making sandwiches at once, we want to try and sustain this, which is much more effective for people receiving sandwiches. Well, next thing we know, we've got people signing up. I've created a spreadsheet with all this information, which I had to kind of learn some of that. But anyway, got that organized. And so ever since the 24th of March, we've been making 150 sandwiches a day, not counting that first day where we made 200. We are up to now, last count was 8,650 sandwiches as of yesterday. And we're going until the end of June, which time we'll have passed 10,000 sandwiches
Which is remarkable, Paul, when you think about it. And what I love about your story is how through, you know, Facebook and other posts that you've created this incredible community that's supporting your community. So you've gotten people together in a time of social distancing, but you've allowed them to connect and then give back, which I think is incredible. I mean, I could talk to you probably for another half an hour on this, but since we only have a half an hour total, I'm going to take this over to you now, Kimberly, and just talk to you about listening to that. And yes, like there's so many groups out there, social media groups on Facebook and things that people can tap into. What's some insight that you can give people that do want to volunteer and want to get participating in something?
I would say the first things first is obviously, you know, make sure that you're keeping safe, you know, so making sure that if you're going to go out into the community, get your, you know, face coverings, your masks, sanitizer. That is the first point of call on everything. There are lots of really great virtual opportunities as well as in-person opportunities. So you want to make sure that you're choosing the opportunities that best suit you and also your household, because if you are going to be out in the community, remember that you do have to come home, and if you live with other people, just keep that in mind. But yeah, there's lots of great ways to get involved, you know, and it helps sort of break the monotony of week 10 of quarantine. So there are lots of great things that people can do. If you look at the Mohawk College volunteer listings page, there I've been trying to populate that as much as possible with opportunities as they, you know, are brought to my attention. So be sure to check that out regularly. I think right now there's maybe 10 positions on there. We're focusing on the remote opportunities right now, just because we haven't as a college gotten the green light, you know, to be in the community. But there's lots of great things people can do in terms of, one of the opportunities is being a virtual mentor. So if you can play guitar really well, or piano, or, you know, if you speak another language, you could be a mentor or give some feedback to a high school or elementary school student based on, you know, doing a video call and just observing their work, you know, and listening to them play, give them some feedback, and that creates that interaction as well. So that's a great opportunity, you know, where you can use a skill that you already have, interact with someone that you don't know, and, you know, just give back to your community in that way. And then also there are other opportunities if you can sew. The YWCA in Hamilton, downtown Hamilton, is looking for people to make masks. And so these opportunities are available to students, but they're also open to the wider Hamilton community. Normally on our volunteer listings page, we focus on, you know, Mohawk centric type of opportunities, but given that the whole community is impacted, it's pretty much a community page right now. So any opportunities that are on there are open to everyone, you know, so if you can sew, if your mom can sew, you can get together, you can make masks, take them down to the YWCA and help out some people in need.
And that's what I love about what's happening in community, and the fact that you can almost look at this in so many ways as a real positive, in the sense of having to social distance. We're having to look at other ways to connect. And then also it's really, I think, sprouting that desire to start to give back when you see everything that's going on, right? And this is a great way, and it's so easy to reach out and find, as you were saying there, Kimberly, something that could be of interest, right? If you can sew, if you know, if this is of interest, you can find groups out there that you can connect with. But let's also talk about just staying connected within your own personal networks, because I think that this can be really challenging for some people. Some aren't comfortable coming on. They don't, and you don't have to have a video component, right? You can connect other ways. So I'll throw it out to both of you, whoever wants to start on this, to talk about staying, keeping connected and support your own personal networks during this time, and any tools that you're using that help you make that happen.
Paul, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say for you to go ahead, but I'll keep it short, because one of the things about moving out to Victoria 4 years ago is I don't have a large network out here. So I have a few close friends that I've stayed connected with through emails and, you know, video chats. But I relied on Facebook or FaceTime and the WhatsApp app and all these different kind of things that I'm slowly learning about to stay connected to people in Ontario. So I've kind of had to, you know, use this kind of connecting different connection through staying connected to people out east. But Kimberly, I'm sure you probably have a lot of other ideas as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of the video calls. I think we're all kind of learning the technology as we go along and learning which ones we like, which ones not so much. So I would say obviously stick with what's comfortable for you. And then, you know, one of the things I've been trying to do is be really mindful and present with the types of questions I'm asking my family members and asking my friends. Because we can ask, you know, the sort of, how are you? But that, you know, it brings on the response, I'm fine. Everyone's just fine. So I started asking some really sort of thought-provoking questions around like, what's the best thing you've learned since being in quarantine? Or what's something you learned about yourself that you didn't know before? Or, you know, what's been the easiest part or the hardest part about quarantine? So just digging a little bit deeper into those, you know, into the conversation, just to see how people really are doing, because through asking those questions, you can get a lot of, you know, insight as to what's going on, you know, with people as we're all, you know, separated from each other. So I think asking really thoughtful questions, and, you know, my family's like, oh, there she goes again, asking, you know, those deep questions, like, Kimberly, I'm fine. But I'm like, but are you really, you know, like, can we have a deeper conversation? Because, you know, without the face-to-face, without the in-person, like, talking is all we have. So we want to make sure that we're asking those deeper questions, just to really check in as to see how people are doing.
I love that. I think that that's a really amazing kind of like nugget to take away for all of us today, right? Is engage in really good conversation. And also I think too, don't always make it about this situation, because there's so many other wonderful things to talk about. And yeah, just asking interest, what are you doing differently right now? You know, what have you learned? I love, what have you learned about yourself, Kimberly? Because I think a lot of people really are learning about themselves in this time of pretty much being isolated. So I really like that. And you know, we'll wrap up a bit of the discussion, not quite, about 5 more minutes before we'll take a look at some of the questions. But I want to ask both of you, because Paul, if we take a look at what you had this idea, you're going to make 200 sandwiches, and now look what it's grown into. And for some, that's like, oh my gosh, that's overwhelming. I could never do something like that. But you had just started to want to do something in a small way, and then it blossomed into something bigger. That doesn't always happen, but what can people do to just try to make a difference in a small way that maybe won't lead to something big because they can't handle that, but they just want to do something little? Any advice there?
Well, I think part of it is actually looking for opportunities. I mean, Kimberly mentioned a lot of, you know, opportunities where, you know, it's a little thing here, a little thing there that you can do out of your own particular skill set. So if you know, play a violin and you want to teach somebody, well, you know, that's something you can do easily. I think for me, it was like, well, you know, with everything shutting down so quickly, it was a crisis. And it was like, well, what, I mean, I felt really badly for the homeless, knowing that they're at the bottom end of the ladder and going to be really suffering. I felt bad about that. What can I do? What little thing can I do? And I think it was just about being open to saying, you know, I want to help somewhere, and then start looking for those opportunities and seeing what works for you and what clicks for you, and then just doing it. And again, out of this situation, I didn't expect it to become 2 months worth of sandwich making, but it, you know, it is what it is. It was just one of those things. It just happened to be meeting a whole bunch of people's needs of wanting to help and give back, but nobody knew how to. So all these little bits of help have turned into this 10,000 sandwiches. So.
And so much for retirement, Paul.
Well, I'm looking forward to June, where I can actually, you know, kind of go, oh, now what am I going to do with all my time now that the sandwiches are done?
I have a feeling you'll find another project.
Well, that tends to be my way of doing things, but yeah.
Which is awesome. Kimberly, some last thoughts from you on just that first step, even that first step to get involved, because I think we all, like, we'd like to, but we're just not sure how to go about doing it. And even if we just want to do something in a small way.
I'd say it starts with just checking in on your neighbors. You know, like, I live in a condo where there's a lot of older people in the building, people who should not be, you know, going out any more than they have to. If I'm running to Costco or Fortino's or wherever, it's like, you know, knock on the door, say, do you need anything? Because I'm going anyway. And that little bit of help, you know, because all of my neighbors are someone's mother, father, brother, sister, aunt. Everyone wants to keep everyone safe. So just check in on your neighbors, see how they're doing, see what you can do to help them. You know, if your neighbor's lawn is looking a little, you know, overgrown, see if you can go just cut their lawn. Like, it's very think about what's in your immediate periphery and just apply yourself to say, you know, how can I help? And just ask, because there's lots of people who need the support and may not know where to ask for it. So how great would it be if we could just offer a little bit?
I love that insight. And one thing that I have noticed, especially within the groups of people that I've associated with, is everybody is there trying to help others, right? Like looking out for their neighbors, or you know, reaching out to their older parents if they can, and just trying to get them connected as well. Because I think for a lot of people, the technology side of thing, it's like that's just crazy for some people to get their head around. But now we're seeing so many people are now figuring it out and conversing and just really embracing the new way of doing things, which I think is so important. So if there, you know, isn't someone that you haven't heard from in a while, just reach out, say hi, right? You don't have to say, you know, how are you, but hey, what have you been up to lately? You know, just something fun to sort of spark a conversation.
Exactly. And if I could just add to that, also just sharing resources that you come across. Like, so when you're looking through, you know, volunteer listings, or you're seeing things that are available in the community that can help, you know, if you know someone that can benefit from that, send it off to them. You know, I have a bunch of, you know, colleagues and friends who are homeschooling, and I sent everyone last week a link to say, you know what, Ripley's Aquarium has online programming to keep your kids entertained, you know, for at least an hour at a time. You know, take advantage of that. So sharing what you know and sharing what you're finding out is also another way of helping out.
Just great. Anything else, Paul?
Well, again, Kimberly's giving lots of really great examples of how to do that in that, you know, within your neighborhood and people that you know. You know, one of the things I think about this is because people are so isolated, there's a lot of people sitting home without doing anything that want to help. And it's about, I think what Kimberly's saying, by sharing those links and opportunities or ideas, then that's also part of building that community by sharing that information so people can get on board. Which is what happened really with this sandwich initiative. It was the same sort of thing. Is like, you know, all these families sitting at home not doing anything. It was about how do I tap into that, and it worked pretty successfully in this particular case. So
yeah, that's for sure.
yeah, so how do you tap into that? Yeah.
Just really great. Well, I'm hoping that there's some comments, even if it's not a question. If those of you that have been joining us for this, if you've got even a comment that you wanted to share, that can always spark a conversation as well. But if you have a specific question, please feel free to put it into the chat box area there, and we'll see it and we can answer it. So we'll give you, a little bit of time to do that. What about this, as we're hoping and seeing if anyone's going to respond and ask us anything, Paul? Is there a way, are you thinking of going national with your program?
No. I mean, this was really established out of a real critical need. I mean, it was a real crisis, right? And, you know, going back to the whole idea about creating community, one of the things that's been wonderful, because I've been the one that's sort of gone around, picked up groceries, dropped off supplies, picked up sandwiches, I get to meet all these people, even though they're all in their own homes. And it's been a wonderful sense of community meeting these people. You know, we keep our distancing, we wear a mask, but it's meeting wonderful, wonderful people. And they get to feel part of something. So I always give them the update of total of how many sandwiches that they've now contributed to. And everybody's like, wow, it's great to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And several families with teenagers have done it several times, made sandwiches a number of times. And so it's become like a family activity. And they always say, oh, what a great break from the normal routine. It's something new to do and fun to do as a family, and they're giving back. And that's sort of where everything has come together in terms of creating community to take care of community.
Oh, that's a fantastic point. You couldn't say that any better. Wonderful way to sort of sum it all up. And as you just said too, giving families something different to do, right? And coming together with each other, because you've got, you know, families with teenagers at home now, and little ones, and it's got to be a crazy environment for so many people. So finding things that you can do together that give back, and then, you know, you feel a real sense of accomplishment, which I think several of us are in need of right now, like that. Just that doing something a little more than what we're doing within the walls of our homes. So, okay, I got, there are so many virtual runs, walks going on to help community organizations. It's a great way to exercise and give back, of course, keeping social distancing there as well. So thanks for that comment. And yeah, well, thanks, Ned. Thank you. Ned sent a message. She's alumni of 87 saying, thank you everyone for the opportunity to listen in on this today. So those are our comments right now, which is fine. I mean, I think a lot of times we do just love to tune in and listen and get some insight and perspective. And Kimberly and Paul, you've given us some great things to think about. And I thank you both very much for your time. And it's just, I love connecting with Mohawk grads. Wasn't it great being at Mohawk College?
It was a long time ago, but it was great.
It was great. I know. If I tell you, Paul, you come back to the college sometime, we'll give you a tour. You won't believe the changes, and it'll feel like you had never left. It's so great.
Good. Okay.
And thanks, Kimberly, for your time today too. And at some stage in the game and all of this, we will see each other in the halls of Mohawk College once again.
I look forward to that.
So just to wrap up. Yeah, thanks. To wrap up today, everyone, that you'll be sent a recording of this webinar. And then next Thursday at 12:30, put it in your calendar. It's navigating a remote workplace, because this has been very strange for so many people to figure out, A, where to set up in a home office, and then to create a very successful working environment that's not physically and mentally straining on you. So we're going to talk about that. So you can register, and for more information about what that one's all about, go to mohawkcollege.ca/alumni, and I'll just take a look at the time. We do have just a little bit of time before we hit the top of the hour. So any more comments can come through the chat. If not, if you have anything lastly that you'd like to end on, Kimberly or Paul, please add it now. And otherwise we'll get ready to wrap up.
I just have one quick point. So in addition to giving to your community, that community also extends to your professional community. So another way for people to get involved is to connect with their professional association, especially if you're a new grad or if you've been working in the field for a while, or wherever you are on that spectrum. Connecting with the professional association that is, connected to your field is a great way to meet new people. For me, I have connected with PAVRO, which is the Professional Association for Volunteer Managers, and it has opened up a whole new world of new people, new connections, new learning. So good things can come out of COVID professionally. It's, just put yourself out there and you'd be surprised at what you find out.
Thanks, Kimberly.
And I was just going to add that I haven't been involved in touch with Mohawk people for a long time. And look what's happened. Here I am, part of the alumni webinar, which I've never done before. This is only my third time on Zoom too. And the second time was Tuesday with Lynn to go run through this. So, so it's got me connected to Mohawk again after, I didn't want to count how many years it's been, too many years, 30 years. So thanks for that too.
Well, thank you, Paul. And yeah, I mean, as you said, third time doing this, and you were a pro. You were awesome. Your story is incredible and very inspiring. And, at the very least may just resonate enough with people that they're going to do something to make a difference in this time. So once again, thank you both very much for being part of this webinar, and there'll be more to come. So make sure you check out mohawkcollege.ca/alumni for more information. You can register there as well as see what else is going to be on the horizon. And again, next week is navigating a remote workplace, success working from home. Thanks, everyone.